If you zoom out, one of the most hopeful things in diabetes medicine right now is that researchers are no longer betting on just one answer. They are trying to solve different parts of the problem at the same time. That matters because diabetes is not one simple bottleneck. In the United States alone, the CDC's January 21, 2026 update says about 40.1 million people had diagnosed or undiagnosed diabetes in 2023. Some people need better ways to delay type 1 diabetes before it fully arrives. Some need safer insulin therapy. Some need a path toward replacing the cells that have been lost. So in this video, I want to show you 4 research angles that feel especially worth watching. Replacing beta cells, protecting those cells from immune attack, building smarter insulin, and making treatment dramatically easier with once-weekly dosing. None of these is the whole future by itself, but together, they make the field look a lot more alive. The most dramatic branch is cell replacement. In type 1 diabetes, the body loses the beta cells that make insulin. So one obvious dream is to put new insulin-producing cells back. That is what stem cell islet replacement is trying to do. Researchers start with stem cells, guide them into becoming islet cells, and then infuse those cells into the hepatic portal vein so they can settle in and begin producing insulin. Right now, the strongest published human signal in this area comes from Vertex's therapy, zimislecel. In the 2025 New England Journal of Medicine report, all 12 participants who received the full dose were free of severe hypoglycemic events and had A1C below 7% after a year. 10 of those 12 were insulin independent at day 365. That is remarkable. It does not mean cured forever. It does not mean ready for everybody. The current approach still requires immunosuppression, and the study population is small and carefully selected. But scientifically, this is a huge proof of concept moment. The ongoing forward study, registered as NCT 04786262, began in February 2021 and currently lists an estimated primary completion in December 2027. So this is not science fiction. It is active human clinical work, with very real milestones still ahead. But replacing cells is only half the story, because in type 1 diabetes, the immune system is still there. If you give someone beautiful new beta cells and do nothing about the immune attack, you have not solved the whole problem. That is why another research angle is all about protection. One version is physical shielding. Vertex's VX264 is testing stem cell-derived islets inside an encapsulation device that is meant to protect the cells while still letting oxygen, nutrients, glucose, and insulin move across the barrier. The study, NCT 05791201, started in May 2023 and currently lists estimated completion in 2026. If that idea works, cell replacement could become much more scalable because the immune problem would be less punishing. The other version is immune interception. Instead of shielding the cells, you try to calm the autoimmune attack itself. The clearest example here is Tzield, also called teplizumab. The FDA approved it on November 17, 2022, to delay stage 3 type 1 diabetes in certain high-risk children and adults. It is given as a 14-day IV course, and in the FDA summary, the median time to stage 3 diabetes was about 50 months with teplizumab versus about 25 months with placebo. Later TrialNet follow-up suggested the delay may be even longer, closer to 60 months versus 27 months. That is not a cure, but a multi-year delay is still a very meaningful medical event, and the story is continuing. A phase 3 preservation study called Beta Preserve, NCT 07808068, first posted in January 2025 and currently estimates primary completion in October 2028. So this whole lane is really asking a hopeful question. What if we can keep more of the body's own insulin-making capacity alive for longer? A third angle is to leave the cells aside for a moment and improve insulin itself. One of the hardest parts of insulin therapy is balancing control against hypoglycemia. So researchers have chased the idea of glucose-responsive insulin for years, insulin that becomes more active when glucose is high and less active when glucose is low. In 2024, a Nature paper described a glucose-sensitive insulin design with a molecular switch that changed receptor binding depending on glucose levels. One reported measure was about a 3.2-fold increase in receptor affinity as glucose rose from 3 to 20 millimolar. In pig studies, the design reduced hypoglycemia. That is exciting because it hints at insulin that behaves a little more like a living system and a little less like a fixed chemical push. But this is still preclinical. It is not an approved product, and it is not ready to promise to patients. I still think it belongs in this conversation because it shows how creative the field has become. Some teams are trying to replace cells. Others are trying to build better molecules. The fourth angle may be the most immediately relatable. What if treatment just became lighter to carry? Once-weekly insulin is interesting for that reason. Efsitora is a long-acting basal insulin design intended to be dosed once a week rather than once a day. In the Phase 3 QUINT-1 study, registered as NCT 05662332, adults with type 2 diabetes who were starting basal insulin were randomized to weekly Efsitora, or daily glargine. The study started on January 14, 2023, and completed on July 19, 2024. The trial was later published in the New England Journal of Medicine in 2025. This is not a cure story, and it is not trying to be. It is a burden story. Fewer injections, simpler routines, and potentially better adherence can matter enormously in real life. Lilly said in June 2025 that it planned global regulatory submissions for adults with type 2 diabetes by the end of 2025. So, among all the futuristic headlines, this is a useful reminder. Sometimes a breakthrough is not about doing the impossible. Sometimes it is about making good care easier to live with every single week. So if you wanted a simple watch list for the next few years, here is mine. Watch 2026 for more clarity on VX264 and whether cell shielding looks viable. Watch 2027 for the next major forward milestone in stem cell islet replacement. Watch 2028 for beta preserve and the question of whether immune therapy can protect insulin production after diagnosis. And keep one eye on the smarter insulin field, even though that one is earlier. To me, the hopeful part is not that one perfect answer is about to arrive all at once. It is that diabetes research now has multiple serious shots on goal. From cell biology to immunology to molecular engineering to practical treatment design. That is what progress often looks like in medicine. Not one miracle, but several real ideas getting closer to patients from different directions.